Have you seen Chuck Norris lately? He's still kicking butt and staying active well into his 80s. What's even more shocking is he looks more jacked than ever and seems to have more energy than guys half his age. And it's all thanks to Morning Kick, a revolutionary new daily drink from Roundhouse Provisions that combines ultra-potent greens like spirulina and kale with probiotics, prebiotics, collagen, and even ashwagandha. Just mix with water, stir, and enjoy. Unlike other green drinks out there, this one tastes exactly like strawberry lemonade and has hundreds of 5-star reviews. Go to roundhouseprovisions.com/save44 for up to 44% off your regular priced order. Plus, every purchase is backed by a 90-day money-back guarantee. So if you want to experience smoother digestion, a boost of energy, and just an overall healthier body, then go to roundhouseprovisions.com/save44 today. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Results can vary.
Shop Plato's Closet tax-free August 2nd through 4th for back-to-school styles. We sell the trendy, gently used styles you need to make a difference in the world and in your wallet for back-to-school shopping. Save up to 70% off regular retail prices by choosing recycled styles. Save even more when you shop tax-free this weekend. Make a change that others can respect and repeat. Shop Plato's Closet in North Charleston and West Ashley this year for your back-to-school looks. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.
They're going to play a game this week, if you can believe it.
Hey, love it. Does it feel weird? It doesn't feel like it's here.
It feels a little weird. It does. It's like, okay, it's here, it's game day, but it feels weird. Like, it's been so long that I'm just like, okay, just a sec. I got to let this dog in the room. He's going nuts. Come on. Behave, though. Yeah, I had to. Yeah, I didn't want you wrecking the place, so I let you in. What's up? Okay.
Oh,
go lay down.
You got a guest host.
Apparently, it's okay, buddy. Go lay down. I know. Mom's in the basement doing camera stuff, but that's okay. Lay down. You're okay.
The following podcast may contain discussions supported by science that may be considered dangerous to some listeners and conspiracy theorists. Discretion is advised.
The 3 Down Greencast is brought to you by the Pile of Bones Brewing Company. Home delivery available in Regina at sassbeerdelivery.ca. Welcome to the 3 Down Greencast. You are listening to the internet's only Canadian-based college football podcast. I'm Joel Gasson with the fill-in John, the backup John. I don't know what we want to call you. CBC's Dan Plaster is back for another week as John Fraser not here, as he and his wife, Lacey, delivered their 3rd child today, Maya Dawn Fraser. So we wish them the best. And naturally, rather than doing this dumb podcast, it was more important for John to be doing dad stuff today with the new child in his life. So understandably, not here this evening.
Congrats. And wow, 3, having enough kids for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. I'm less than John. Wasn't that a bad Canadian? Oh, that was less than Jake.
Less than Jake. Good try. It was close.
Yeah, it was less than John. That's the title of the podcast. You just go less than John. That's all you have to do.
Maybe. So if you missed last week's episode, I would still recommend and go back checking out. It's probably one of our better ones as we play a little game to preview the CFL season. So this is going to be a little bit more of a rapid-fire kind of episode. We're just going to cover a lot of different topics that maybe we haven't got to in the last few weeks and look ahead a little bit to the week that will be in the CFL, especially when it comes to the Saskatchewan Roughriders, who finally play their first game in 700 years when they play the BC Lions on Friday night at Mosaic Stadium. But I put out the call earlier today, Dan, because you were going to be on this here program, about if anyone had any questions about the Riders or the CFL or anything.
Yeah, and I made the mistake of opening up Twitter for the first time in a long time, and let me have it.
So we may answer some of them. A couple of them we're gonna go a little different off the top here.
Sure.
So there was an episode where, well, in the past, Mr. Fraser has been one to use the term rube from time to time.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so our friend Greg over at the People's Podcast would like to know if you know what the definition for the word rube is or what you think it is.
It's hayseed. Think of it as a hayseed.
Mm-hmm.
just an unintelligent. I mean, it's yeah, that would be my thought of what it is. But then you could also, if you want to, maybe he's smart. Maybe it's like the Rube Goldberg machine. Maybe you're unnecessarily smart putting your brains into things that don't really matter, kind of like what we're doing here. So we technically could be Rube Goldbergs, but it's like Mousetrap. That's a Rube Goldberg. Anyways, so yeah, I would say that's what when John says a bunch of rubes or that sort of thing, it is, yes. I would say my thing would be hayseeds.
Yeah, so I mean, both of us were surprised to learn that it's basically something you say toward rural people, and it's not very nice. So
it is not nice. It is, yeah.
Because it kind of comes off innocent sounding as just a word that is just kind of like, hey, you're dumb. But yeah.
Well, it was probably one of those things in the 40s. It was like the F word.
Very possible.
Yes, but now it's short for Reuben.
I mean, and Reuben sandwiches are delicious.
Oh, they're so good. Reuben Foster, good running back.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's all the Reubens.
There's probably others. I'm just too lazy to go look
silence.
right now.
Famous Rubes.
The Rubik's Cube.
Also, mindlessly hard.
Mm-hmm. But then there's those people that can do them in like 10 seconds, and you're just like, what?
And blindfolded. Christy Kleimenhaga, CBC weather specialist, one of those that can do it blindfolded.
Wow. Oh, yeah, Dan works for the CBC, by the way, if you didn't know that already.
Yes, tune in if you wish. All the Olympics that you can handle.
Yes. And occasionally Dan shows up on your TV when they have no one else to do the news.
Yes, when everybody else is... I always call it the what the heck was the movie? It was John Goldman. Whatever. It was... everybody in the royal family dies, and he was the last member of the royal family, and he owns a bowling alley in the John Goodman movie. Yes, and that's what it is. He was the King Ralph. That's what the movie was called. Mm-hmm. And I always call myself King Ralph because everybody else is either sick or dead, and I have to do it.
Fair enough.
As we get dark.
We're going to pull us out of the darkness here a little bit. Since you are filling in for this sleazy car salesman, John, Ryan Ballantyne wanted me to ask you about undercoating and extended warranties.
Oh, God. I own a 2008 Ford Ranger, so my undercoat is rust.
Don't have to protect anything when it's already rusted.
No, the thing will run forever, and my ass will hit the ground because the whole seat will fall through the bottom, because that is what those Ford trucks do. They'll run forever, and then I'll have to go to John, and he can squeeze every living dime out of me for some sort of vehicle. I think that's the circle of life.
Well, I mean, some other guy there will, and then John will try to sell you the extra stuff, because he always will defend himself as the finance guy, not the sales guy. So... we just love to bug him and tell him that he's a sleazy sales guy, when really he's just the guy to make sure you actually have money to buy the car.
Oh, so he'll give me the 14% interest.
Yes. He's the one that'll see you. It's like, oh, this guy works for the CBC. He can afford it.
Yes. It's like, are we going with a major bank? No, we're going with the South Shore Bank.
You get there on Southeast Airlines.
Oh, yuck.
Reference that no one understands on this show.
Oh, God. Yeah. I saw some of those questions. I'm glad there's some football ones.
Surprisingly, there are some football ones.
But those two, yeah, I am. You were talking to, just like you, if I open up a truck or a car, I'm just going to get somebody else to fix it, and I'll get somebody else to sell it to me, and I'll get John to do our financing. That's how it's going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, we are going to talk about the Rider game ahead. A couple of questions surrounding the Riders. But, of course, once again this week, the 3 Down Greencast is brought to you by Manscaped, of course. Attention listeners across the galaxy, all the way from Australia to Houston. Do we have a pube problem? If so, our friends at Manscaped have cleared you for takeoff with their 4th generation of brand new Lawnmower 4.0. Kick your pubes to the next planet with the Performance Package 4.0. The orbits in your pants will feel like you're in zero gravity when you use the best tools for the job from the leaders in male grooming. Join the 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and get your rocket ready for takeoff by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the code FANSIDED20. Of course, with the Lawnmower 4.0, you not only get the little device, you also get the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, crop preserver in English, ball deodorant, crop reviver toner, and performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold all your solar systems, because, I mean, you never really know when you're going to need it when you're on the road, especially these days when we're traveling chicks notes nowhere. And the Performance Package 4.0 includes the Weed Whacker, as mentioned, and don't forget to use the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and the Crop Reviver to help your little planets on their A game while feeling the sun's heat. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts to their Performance Package 4.0, the Manscaped Boxers, and the Travel Bag.
Oh, a travel bag for your travel bag.
Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code FANSIDED at FANSIDED20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code FANSIDED20 at manscaped.com. For a clean Trinity and beyond, your Spaceballs will thank you.
That read had you by the short and curlies.
Always does.
Always does.
I make sure, usually I leave that up to John, so I kind of got through that as best I could, I guess.
But well done.
He's more open about talking about his equipment, as he likes to say. So,
well, with 3 kids, he is proud of his equipment.
And now his equipment no longer works either. So, there's no more fear of more John Frasers coming. So,
it's a low functioning equipment.
And of course, before we get into the football talk, as usual, we are going to ask one Mr. Dan Plaster what's in the glass this week.
Oh, you're gonna kill me. I went. It's swill. It's just pure swill.
I mean, John's already set the bar pretty low with his new maternity leave budget. So,
no, I just went with a straight High Lifes. I have the Prairie Pills in my fridge, and the new malty Pilsner as well, or lager. What was it? The champagne.
Pilsner. Yeah, it's Pilsner. Yeah,
I got 4 of those as well. So
nice.
They're waiting for after the game on Friday night when we all get home at super late. Those will be my go to sleep beers.
Okay, nice, right on.
This is working beers. I need to be somewhat functional, even though the beginning of this podcast shows I am zero function right now. So so we're gonna go with the swill today.
Absolutely.
And you?
For me, I brought home a 6-pack today of the 9 Mile #1 Durham Wheat Ale.
Oh, how is it?
It's phenomenal. We had it up in Saskatoon when I was there over the weekend. Had it on tap at 9 Mile. Very nice, very easy drinking. I think would be perfect for your little delicate palate as well.
I'm sensitive, Joe.
I know you are, but it's nice. It's easy drinking. Made with Durham wheat out of Southwest Saskatchewan, of course. So local all around, and a little touch of sweetness to it, which I kind of like, but not not overpoweringly sweet, but definitely a little bit. So I would definitely recommend it. Available in 6-packs at retailers across the province. And, of course, on tap at 9 Mile and maybe elsewhere as well.
9 Mile, they have done so well. I mean, and they kind of fit that Saskatoon kind of area, just kind of how the breweries here in Regina have kind of figured things out here as well. I really dig what 9 Mile's done up there.
Yeah, always really strong stuff. Out of our friends at 9 Mile Legacy, or as they call themselves one time as an April Fool's joke, 14.5 kilometer Legacy.
Perfect.
Anyway, yeah, the Riders play this week, and they will be playing the BC Lions. And I'm going to be completely honest here. John Hodge was texting me earlier today because I had not put in my picks yet for this week on the 3 Down Nation, as we always have a picks piece that goes up every week for all the games. I kind of forgot on one end. And number 2, I'm also like, I don't know who the hell I'm going to pick in any of these games.
You don't know. Especially here. I mean, yeah. We have both talked about this at length. All you do is bet on the under. That's all you should just, in your picks, it just should say Saskatchewan, BC, under. Hamilton, Winnipeg, under.
Yeah.
Let's just don't put it. Yeah, I don't know.
The only one that maybe might go over because of the amount of injuries on defense might be that Winnipeg.
Oh.
That Winnipeg Hamilton game with like Ted Laurent and company out. And I think and both quarterbacks are actually, I don't think either quarterback is on the list there, so they might play.
it's just so messy. And then, well, it says Willie Jefferson is questionable, but I mean, he'll play.
Tom Brady's questionable every week on the report too when he was in New England, wasn't he?
I was questionable for tonight. We're questionable for waking up in the morning at this point in time in our lives. But you're right. It's like, even with 2 starting defensive backs out and then Ted Laurent I think you're right. They might put on a show. Do you think they'll put? You know what? That would be great to have that Saskatchewan Montreal show back in, was it 2009, 2010, when they had that big shootout at Mosaic Stadium, old Mosaic Stadium. It might be that. That would be a nice way to get things started on a Thursday.
That would be a hell of a way for everything to start after everything this league and the fans have been through. To be able to experience the first game like that certainly would be a lot of fun. I'm not really holding my breath at what's going to happen, but it certainly would be welcome.
And they get a victory already for the restrictions they have in Manitoba, but we won't get into
we're not going to get into any of that on this episode. As I said, we're actually going to talk about football for a change. So yeah,
still a big fan.
Yeah, absolutely. But the question then is, so the Riders and the BC Lions. I mean, Michael Riley. I mean, Craig Dickinson believes he's going to play. He sounds like he's not 100% if he does play, and that's kind of one of the big question marks for the BC Lions coming into this game. So, I mean, despite, Taron Vaughn didn't practice on day 2 for the Riders either. So, I mean, there's already a beat-up offensive line that may be missing one of their most important pieces. And so we're just left wondering, I mean, that to me sounds like a recipe for the under for sure. And if you're going defense for defense, I mean, I guess I'm going to land with the Riders just because, I believe the defensive line is going to be good. I think AC Leonard doesn't get enough respect for what he's been able to do. Mika Johnson is not as bad as people made him out to be the last time he was in Saskatchewan. He was still pushing the pocket. He just didn't meet unrealistic sack numbers that he picked up 1 year in Calgary. And of course, the secondary's back together. So the question is basically the linebacking core, but we've seen this team survive with poor linebacking before. So if we're going straight defense for defense, I think the favorite should be the Riders, right?
I think it'll be the Riders by at least a touchdown on Friday night. Even just riding that full wave. I know home field advantage hasn't been so super home field advantage, as we can tell by the last 2 home playoff games. But
they're not against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, so that's the difference.
And it's always the lid lifter in 2017 or 2016. That was also the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Western Dress. Very much, but because how much has BC improved from a woeful season in 2019? We don't know, but they're the unknown, where the Riders are the known. And as we said, if you're going to go young and have a tough time along the offensive line, the Riders are going to do the right thing and do it with Canadians, because that's kind of the Calgary Stampeder style of things, of doing things. Yes, they'll have 1 or 2 years of bad offensive line play, but 2 years after that, they have the strongest offensive line in the CFL, and they start winning Grey Cups again. So back to Michael Riley, when isn't he banged up? He's going to go, because that's just the way he is. But side note, are you surprised with all the injuries, considering there's no contact? Like, this is gross how many injuries there are right now.
I mean, no. I think it's easy to, you would think there has to be a lot of contact for injuries to happen, but, I mean, 10 guys are on the shelf right now just from blown Achilles, which don't require contact to go, as we well know in Saskatchewan even before this year, after, Darian Durant and that whole thing. So, I mean, it's not really all that surprising. I think about how sore guys like me and you are when we don't play a sport for a while, or we play a different sport that we haven't played before, and muscles we aren't used to using are hurt. And they hurt a little bit the next day, not quite to the same degree. We're not pulling, we're not so bad that we can't walk, or maybe sometimes we can't. But, I mean, when you're at that level, I'm like, yeah, okay, you work out every day and you stay in very good shape, as I'm sure all of them have for the most part, but you're just not used to pushing your body the same way. And I'm not surprised there's a whole rash of injuries across the league, when most of these guys, except anyone who was in college, the NFL, or maybe even the XFL last year, didn't play a game.
Yeah, I just try to wrap my head around the whole thing. Just these are all non-contact injuries. First off, and you've mentioned that, but this might be one of those weird things, is once contact happens, there might be less injuries during games than there are during this first 4
you
weeks
would
of
think
practice.
physically they should be stronger to withhold the contact now, because a lot of them haven't taken contact in years. So from that regards, their bodies are probably in better shape. It's just all the other wear and tear sort of stuff from not playing football that you're just trying to get up to speed that is probably going to be more the problem.
Oh, it's going to be messy. There's going to be a lot of bad timing, I don't think there'll be as many offsides and procedures, because that's one of those things they really try to work on. Mm-hmm. But you could see some.
How many guys are going to go down with cramps?
When it's going to be 30 degrees at Mosaic Stadium, it's going to be, well, they've been practicing it. It shouldn't be that bad. I mean, they both should be like really adapt to how hot it's been out west. I mean, BC was the Lions were practicing in Kamloops to begin with, and that's dog hot in the desert there. And that shouldn't be a problem, but nobody's played into the 59th minute of a fourth quarter of a CFL game in 19 months. So I'm kind of torn between, we kind of like knowing who is what and what is where and kind of have a feeling of what's going to happen. But I also have this great feeling of how fresh this is. This is brand new and we don't know. And that's kind of the fun that's overtaking everything.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, because I think, from maybe not so much your perspective, because you're not really in the day-to-day of writing and talking about football other than, shooting the shit with guys like me. When you're talking, but from like an official perspective, when we're going on to 3 Down Nation, or you're a guy at TSN, or you're with someone else who covers this league day-to-day, you're expected to kind of have this understanding of the league a little bit from some people, and you're sort of thinking you should understand the league a little bit and be able to kind of talk about it from a pretty good place. And right now, I mean, we're all kind of trying to make the best of it, but at the same time, we're all kind of guessing as best as anyone else at this point on what the hell's actually going to happen this season. So from like a professional perspective, I can see why it's like, well, I mean, this is the best time to be doing it from this, but also from a professional perspective and a personal perspective, this is going to be hella fun, because it feels like literally anything can happen other than maybe the Ottawa Redblacks being good.
And how many guys are going to be playing their first game on Friday night? 12? 14?
Yeah.
And that's a part of the unknown. You don't know what we know Ben Laddick from UBC, but we don't know what he's going to be like on the field in the CFL. Logan Ferland, we've seen him with the Hilltops and that sort of thing, and we know what he's like there. We don't know what he's like on the field. And I know I wanted to get him in. I don't know if Garrett Marino is going to play for the Riders.
Well, we'll just bring it into Adrian there. His question,
okay,
was who are the fresh faces on offense and defense that you are most excited to see on the field on Friday?
Well, defense is Garrett Marino, and offense is Logan Ferland. Yeah. Garrett Marino, University of Alabama, Birmingham, an odd journey. Started off at Arizona State, injuries, went to Montana State, injuries, and sat for 2 years before he went to UAB, and was all CUSA and a big pro
Conference USA for those that don't know.
Yes, Conference. Sorry, Conference.
It's everyone's
USA.
first podcast, right?
Yes, it is everyone's first. Yes, all Conference USA. And he was a big Pro Football Focus guy. Like, he was a top 50 defender in Pro Football Focus in the country in 2019. So if you want to see how he looks, think of a tattooed American Keith Sholigan. That's what he's going to look like. And if he's anything like that, that's a good thing for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And we've talked a lot about Logan Ferland already on the Riders side of things. On the BC side, defensively, as I said, Ben Laddick, if he gets any reps, and then the surprise from 2019, he was with Ottawa, is J.R. Tavai, who was great along the Red-Black defensive line, and now he's on the BC line defensive line. I can't wait to see him in person too.
Yeah, I think Logan Ferland is like obviously the obvious one. I mean, he's coming in with a lot of hype. You don't see a ton of guys this fresh out of junior getting an opportunity to start. Like, especially in a high-profile spot, sometimes they get in like Dan Clark used to at tight end early on in his career. But I mean, he's being put into the spotlight here, and it's going to be sink or swim pretty fast. I mean, that's not to say that if Logan Ferland has a rough first game or two, that's going to be the end of his career. Certainly not. But it'll go a long way in determining just the confidence people might have in the team this year, because I know I've seen it with my 3 Down colleagues. There's a lot of question marks about this team and how good, as some people even have them finishing last in the West because of that offensive line, which, I mean, I can't entirely disagree. I don't think it's going to happen, but in theory it could happen, and I think a lot of it's going to rest on his shoulders, and it's also going to rest on, for the guy, for me, Brett Boyko, because there's a lot of talk about him, about whether he's actually good or not. And, you know, he's going to go out to that right tackle spot where he's going to be on a bit of an island now, and we'll see if whether he's got it or not, really.
And after bouncing around and playing the American game for so long, it's just, that's an interesting one as well. And the Logan Ferland thing almost feels, but not quite, the Ben Heenan season in his rookie year, when he had to be thrust in right away.
Ben Heenan did have the pedigree of being the number 1 overall pick.
Yes, but Logan has also spent a little bit more time with the team before getting plugged in.
Fair enough.
But
we don't really know. I mean, Logan Ferland went to junior by choice. It's not like he never got the opportunity to play U Sports or NCAA. He just said it himself. He didn't want to go to a traditional school. He wasn't the guy who could sit in a classroom all day. He wanted to apprentice as a carpenter, and you couldn't do that unless you only play junior football. So maybe he is a number 1 overall quality guy. He just never really went the route to get that chance, quite frankly.
And that's a whole other story we could talk about in the offseason, about how stupid the NCAA is. If you want to be a journeyman mechanic or carpenter or pilot, you still have to get your degree in basket weaving from Directional State University just because you want to play football.
Yeah, the Warren Woods Memorial Middle Utah State, as you like to say.
Yes. But this is one of the rare times that we will say that junior hockey does have it right, is you could use it in just pay your players. And so I love that he's a junior player, and he could just be with Clark, Wilson, Harris. You could put Ferland on there, and it's great that the PFC, I think it's the quality of the PFC that allows him to be this good. Of course, Andrew Harris played out in the BC FC, and a little bit different out there, a little bit more wide open, which is probably why he was successful. But I think the out west, if you have the PFC and the BC Football Conference, if you come out of anywhere, that's where you're coming out of.
Oh, and there's a number of guys even who came through U Sports that have background in the PFC as well through Ken West. So there's no longer the 10-year guys. Hello, Daryl Leeson. You're 32. Yes, I am. I still have a year left of eligibility. Defensively, for me, he's kind of been a little bit of the star of camp, and that's Keon Adams. He seems to be the guy that they're going to plug out on the other side of AC Leonard at the end, and he'll be the guy expected to clean up the mess that they're hopeful that Mika Johnson and McKenna Henry can make in the middle there.
I was just looking at the BC receiving corps. That's a good receiving corps.
They do have a good receiving corps, absolutely. The question is, will he get the time this year to do it, and does he have the ability to do it?
So to simplify it, which offensive line plays best on Friday will end up winning the football game?
We went from all this conversation to bring it down to probably the least hottest take in football. Yes. Because it applies to every single football game ever, no matter the quality of opponents.
Yeah, but a little bit more glaring here when it's too real. Like, and I don't know how good either defensive line is. I mean both. No.
I think
have stars.
Yeah, I think I have more confidence in the BC D line that well, but reading what some people talk about the Rider defensive line, and there's a lot of people who are very concerned about the loss of Charleston Hughes and what that's going to mean. I think the D line's going to be fine. Maybe they're not, as spectacular as they were in the past, but. And, maybe they don't have the splashy playmaker they did before, but I think it's still going to be a solid group that will get the job done.
Yep, I agree. And that's why I will stick to my Riders by 7.
Okay.
Are you actually writing that down?
No, I'm not writing anything down.
Wow. Hold me to my word.
I guess that kind of covers to Thomas was asking, will the Riders offense be able to overcome an injury to the O-line? Even just one that happens for a half game looks like it could be high impact. That's worst case scenario. That would be for either team, BC or Saskatchewan. I think
especially considering the turnover of Canadians over the last 2 years, and you're coming in with 2 complete Canadian classes of college players that the majority of them we know are offensive linemen. I think that's where things are going to be very, very interesting across the CFL.
Yeah.
It's the battle of attrition along the offensive line is going to be one of those side notes that we'll all watch.
Yeah, and I mean, right now, Matlin Riley's already on the Ryder injury list. He's been missing practice for non-injury reasons. So, I mean, if he's out, all of a sudden you're looking at Josiah St. John as the only guy to be able to step up and fill any of those Canadian spots. And I mean, we don't really know any of the guys behind Taron Vaughn, quite frankly, at this point. None of them have played a game, so it's hard to speculate really anything about them. So, yeah, I mean, this is a greater conversation of this team right now, which maybe, I mean, that could be the reason why they could be potentially starting 9 Canadians is they just don't feel they simply have the depth at Canadian offensive line. They have the depth to start 4 guys, but they don't really have enough to replace behind them. So if they have to go to American there, they still have 8 other Canadians on the field.
Which is smart, and you're probably going to see that for the first 4 weeks. I'm surprised more teams won't go that way.
Yeah. And it's this interesting spot because, I mean, we've seen a lot of teams do 8 before, and I was kind of surprised when at practice the other day, Murray McCormick kept tweeting about the different spots in the field, and he said, yeah, they're looking at 9 Canadian starters, and I'm like, huh. I thought for sure they'd maybe go with 8. I didn't think they'd push it to 9. I think Tights at linebacker is maybe a bit of a surprise that he's a starter at this point, given, I mean, he's kind of a journeyman. He's been around a little bit, but maybe there's a little bit of Mike Edom where all of a sudden with this defense, he finds his role and it works. I don't know, maybe, but he's not a guy that I don't think ever has really been pegged as a starter for a while. So that'll be kind of interesting to watch. But overall, it's just interesting to see a team with such good Canadian depth, because Daryl Davis has always liked to say the teams with the best Canadians generally win the Grey Cup. And I don't know if the Riders have the best Canadians, but they certainly have a plethora of them. And usually that leads to success, but the depth and overall in certain spots is so problematic or potentially problematic, that it just feels very strange to talk about a team with very good Canadian depth overall, but we're not really penciling them. There isn't really a consensus on them even finishing top 2 in their division.
Well, it's your definition of depth.
I mean, well, they have starting depth for sure.
Yes, but then we just said the offensive line could be down to 3 at most. I mean, yes, the 2 receivers and your 2 to 3 defensive players. I've always liked Micah Tights, great player out of the University of Calgary, and still young. Like isn't he like 26 only? And this is his 3rd season. He was incredible. Gets beat up a lot, but that's just the way he plays. Just like any linebacker, plays a little bit reckless, but a favorite of Coach Dickinson because he's a great special teamer too. So I'm glad he's getting his shot, and he better buckle up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not saying he can't do it. It's just you just never really thought of him in that spot because, as you said, he's kind of been a special teamer. He seemed like he kind of found his role. But again, like a guy like Mike Edom kind of felt that way for a while too. And then he signed in Saskatchewan, and I remember we probably even said, oh, really? Why did they sign him? Because he was supposed to be this thing. He never really turned into much, and then it just suddenly clicked. So maybe that's something that could happen here, and maybe that's something Tights could be looking at and say, okay, there's an opportunity for me here, and I need to make the most of it.
I hope so. I mean, just us being Canadians, we always hope for the Canadians to do well, and I think that's overall in the CFL, and I think because of the 2 full classes, not just in Saskatchewan or as we're talking about in BC, we might have that new generation, and we hope, because boy, we struggled to find a most outstanding Canadian on last week's episode. I think there's going to be this new generation of Canadian players that shine, and I think a generation of Canadian players that are great on the defensive side of the football.
Yeah, it definitely seems to be going that way. On 3 Down Nation, we were asked to make our predictions for most of the major awards, and I went with Corey Greenwood and most outstanding Canadian. I think he could be in the line for most outstanding defensive player as well, but it's hard for a Canadian linebacker to win that thing, especially, if Willie Jefferson or Jared Davis put up big sack numbers again. Flashy numbers tend to attract the voter's eye. So I think it's probably a spot maybe he settles for most Canadian. But yeah, I mean, you look at him, you look at Henoc Muamba, you look at Mike Edom right now, you look at Cam Judge. Like, there are difference makers on defense that are Canadian right now, and that wasn't always the case, right? But historically, it's been okay. You played offensive line, you threw a guy out, you had 3 or 4 Canadian offensive linemen, you threw a guy out at wide out, and then you filled in a couple other spots just to kind of make it work, right?
Yeah, your slot, your wide side, your 4 Canadians, and a safety, and then you just go to work, and that's what it's like since the beginning of time. That's what it's always been.
Yeah, go on.
And sure, there's been the odd linebacker here and there, but I do like that there are the defensive side of the football finally kind of with that switch, and you don't have to have 4 Canadian offensive linemen, though it's great to see 4 Canadian offensive linemen. It's just nice to see the variety, and I think it makes it easier on the general managers, though we don't really want to make it too easy on them.
No, never.
It makes it a lot easier for them to find that Canadian talent.
And in this game on Friday night, we could see another rarity, and that's if Michael Riley does not play or leaves the game. Their backup is former Ohio quarterback Nathan Rourke.
The Ohio Bobcat, isn't that that is something? And I think even last year we talked in 2020 and 2019, and I think we bring them up every time. And it's funny how it's now him. It's now time. I think it's awesome. I'd like to see him. I don't know if it'd be.
I don't know if it would be fair to throw him in at this point. But if something happens to Riley, they have to. But by choice, I don't know if I'd like to see him this early, especially without a preseason game or something under his belt.
Well, you might have to at least give him some of those weird third down snaps, second and short yardage, that sort of thing, and it's funny. Ohio from the MAC, the Mid-American Conference, as you've alluded to earlier. We need to give full proper names. Frank Solich is the longtime coach at Ohio, and Frank Solich was his coach, and he helped Frank Solich to first in the MAC West division, I think for the first time in a long time, and kind of got them back to prominence. And now his brother is the starting quarterback at Ohio.
Interesting.
Yes.
The moral of the story is watch your hashtag Maction.
You know what? Maction is yes, please, folks. If you
it's
have
not
a chance
quite, it's not quite Fun Belt, but it's pretty. It's up there. It's up there.
It used to be on Tuesday nights. It used to be the Tuesday night Mac Attack. And so, folks, when you complain about Thursday night football, just remember there was Tuesday night college football at one time. Get on TV by any means necessary. And yes, I still hate Thursday night games, but it works for your season opener.
Yeah, I think it does too. And the NFL Thursday night opener has always kind of felt different and special, and I'm okay with the opener but after that, just can the whole thing.
Yes, put a game on each day on the first week for the CFL, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it's beautiful. Everybody gets the spotlight. After that, just go Fridays and Saturdays, please.
Speaking of TSN, this is something that John and I have been meaning to talk to, but haven't actually got into at this point. And that is, of course, the changes made to the host broadcaster for the CFL this year. After the departure of Chris Cuthbert to Sportsnet, obviously, last year, as he decided to follow his dream at his age of 67, I believe, to finally call a Stanley Cup final game, which obviously was not going to happen with Bell Media anytime soon. So understandably, he went and left for Rogers at Sportsnet and did the great job he always did over there. And so that kind of left TSN in the lurk a little bit about what was going to happen, but with their play-by-play roles and the panel and the whole thing. And then we had to wait like a whole year to find out what the heck was going to happen because obviously there were no games last year. If you rewind back about a year, I wrote a piece for 3 Down Nation talking about what I believe TSN, I don't know if they should do, but what they would probably end up doing. And that was what they did. And I wrote it again saying that it was kind of the safe and smart move for TSN at the time, given sort of the media landscape right now and COVID-19 and how it's affected budgets and the whole thing like that. And that is, of course, I'm sure you haven't missed the news by now, Rod Smith moving out of the panel chair into the play-by-play booth, where he's always done a pretty good job. I've liked his work on Thursday Night Football there, and he's, of course, called Olympics and all kinds of sports in the past as well. And replacing him on the panel will be Kate Burness, which I think is actually the bigger part of this because it brings, in my opinion, a younger and female voice to the panel that's kind of been missing for a while.
I think she needed this too.
Mhm.
I think she's just kind of been, I don't know, since I don't think quite the desk is what she wants. I think she wants that hosting role, and
Yeah.
this is her chance to really spread her wings and drive the bus. She's got a lot of personality, and she has a lot of personality she needs to wrangle, and I think this is probably going to be a good thing, not just for her, but for TSN, for her to finally spread her wings completely and figure out who Kate, as I talk about her in her third, who Kate Burness really is, who she really is as a broadcaster. And as for Rod Smith, wonderful man, love him in the booth. This is a great thing. I think it's great. Weird question. You may not be able to answer this. Are they going to be on site? Are the announcers going to be on site?
That I don't actually know.
It's just weird, just as how the
Mhm.
NHL kind of by the end of the playoffs started to, but then still didn't do. But that was the American games.
Yeah.
I would assume
Like,
yes.
I would assume yes as well. And the only ones I'm not entirely, like, I think in most markets they probably will, because by the sounds of the release Bell Media put out on where they're going with this, I don't know if Rod's really considered the lead guy. He probably is. He'll probably end up doing the Grey Cup just because of the talent and the whole thing. But it sounded like, if you read between the lines a little bit, well, I guess we'll have to see what happens. It sounds like there's a number of guys that are going to be used this year. Like Rod Black he was mentioned first in the release, which caught my eye first. I'm like, I hope this doesn't mean anything. Then Rod Smith, and of course Dustin Nielsen, Marshall Ferguson, and even Farhan Lalji was mentioned. So I'm wondering if it's going to be a little regional-ish at times, and whether maybe some guys call games from a booth for, say, like Winnipeg and Saskatchewan at times where there isn't someone based here, while like Marshall Ferguson will kind of do the Ontario-ish region with Rod, and then maybe Farhan does the odd game in BC, and Dustin's of course in the Alberta market, so maybe it kind of works out like that a little bit for this year, just to try and cut down on the guys traveling everywhere. I don't know.
So that's a lot of people, and that's a lot of voices, and that's still a lot of new. Like, I know this will be his third season. That's still a new voice, and he has a voice kind of similar to a lot of the TSN guys. So, that's a good thing. So that's a familiar type of sound and tone that they're used to in play calling. But that's a lot of voices.
It is, yeah.
I'm
hoping it's just exceptional circumstances that have led to that this year, or they're just trying to sort it out. Like, I can't imagine that long term they would put play-by-play on Farhan's plate, considering everything else he does.
But 4 is still a lot. You need it should be your 3, and then that's what you go with.
Yeah, and I mean, you could maybe bump it up to occasionally 4 if they get the 10th team and you have 5 games a week.
Well, yeah, you'd need it for that, but with no more than 4 games a week, and some weeks with 3, I still think it's a 3. You have your Friday night guy.
I don't mind 4 if you have 4 games a week, because then everyone's focus is on their one game rather than having to pull double duty.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of torn with that. It's kind of that old man thing. This is what I'm used to, but you know what? Also, TSN needs to build their pen of voices. Like, they have also gone through a giant transition, and to get Marshall and Dustin hard reps is needed, not just for football, but when they get to have to thrown into the CHL mix and into all the other things that the U Sports mix and that sort of thing. So they need to get some talent and refresh that talent pool, and I think that's something that they have their recruitment people have noticed.
Yeah, I think that's an entirely fair point. They've of course picked up the Canadian Hockey League rights, and there's a lot of other options they're gonna have to go through there. And I think in terms of the guys like Dustin and Marshall at the same time, you're looking at grooming sort of who you hope will take over just for the CFL, even, because I think for a while there they were a little comfortable with Rod Black and Chris Cuthbert, because it just kept rolling every year, and it kept working, and then all of a sudden Cuthbert leaves, and you're like, oh god, what do we do? Where do we go from here? And I think now it's finally, and the year off has kind of forced them to say, okay, we have Rod Smith for now, that's great, but we need to think about where we're going with this product as well, because as much as we would love for them to open the CFL, to open their horizons to who is broadcasting their games beyond just Bell Media, that's not changing anytime soon. So where is this product going in the future? And I think they need to figure that out as well. They started with their play-by-play guys. I hope they're thinking about that on the color end too.
Yes. Was that in the press release? Is it still Dwayne Ford and
Glenn Suter were for sure there. I think they said maybe Matt Dunigan a little bit, but they didn't really get too much into that. So it sounds like I think it's mainly the two guys still.
We need somebody younger in there.
Mm-hmm.
It would be they need their Tony Romo. They have their Troy Aikmans. They need their Tony Romo now. I think that's one thing that would really set the tone. There was a little bit of a change when it went from CBC to TSN, and the Chris Walbys and all those familiar voices that you've heard for so many years were kind of lost, and now Suter and Ford have done it for so long. They're the familiar voices, but there needs to be a little bit of a new voice. But who, I don't know. Probably could have been Henry, but now he's coaching, so he's off the list.
Is Travis Lulay coaching anywhere?
I thought he was,
because I mean he was doing a little bit of work with Sportsnet at Grey Cups, and he's always been very well spoken and understands the game. So he was always kind of the guy in my mind as potentially someone they should be looking at for color commentary.
Let's hope. He would definitely be one of those guys. And then, does it have to be a quarterback?
No, I mean it doesn't. I think it would be great to have a guy on defense up there for a change. I just don't know who that is. I don't.
Yeah, who's your dynamic? Oh man, now you're just racking your brain trying to think of players who just recently. Like, there's a glut of them that just recently retired that probably could jump into the booth, but how good could they be? And then one thing that always gets me, and I know you just roll your eyes, I would like to see a better graphics package. Please, can we polish this up a little bit? I don't need it to look like your hockey that looks like you're this, that looks like you're that. Let's have a little bit of CFL uniqueness to it, and not have the same studio and same graphics. But that's just my own personal bugaboo, and I know people just roll their eyes when I say that.
I mean, I'm in the same boat as you. I think the whole thing could use a big refresh, but it seems like just little baby steps for now.
And I understand with budgets and that sort of thing, and considering how tight it is, that's probably, if I'm the bean counter and if I'm the talent relations person and doing all that sort of thing, this is probably the most astute way of going about things, instead of dropping a whole bunch of money in a whole new graphics and rollout package.
He's Jacques Cartier. Show's over.
Back to school savings are officially in session at Tanger Outlets. Shop the latest school styles with an extra 25% off during Tanger Style, our biggest sale of the season, now through August 25th. Plan your trip at Tanger.com.